sport, shows, updates, and interviews. The only way is the right way, I might say. Nobody doing it better, y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles, got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the TWSN.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Sit Down with Malik Wright morning show presented by the Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, Malik Wright, joined by my co-host always, Daniel, and we've got Jimmy on the ones and twos. Appreciate you guys making us part of your daily morning routine. We appreciate it. And to Eric Johnson, appreciate how passionate you are in the morning. Has this show ever started on time? We had a little bit of technical difficulties. We like to make sure that everything is pristine and perfect before going live. And if that means we have to be late a little bit by 2 or 3 minutes, then that's what we'll do to make sure that this show is up to its absolute best. But still appreciate the comment. Again, do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or when we upload content from the TWSN studios. Hey, let's start over in LA. Let's start over with the NBA in LA. A lot of people out there are feeling a certain way because LeBron James and his son Bronny finally made a debut together. And there are a lot of people out there with takes saying that it was forced, it was this, it was that. But before we jump into all that, let's relive the special moment that took place the other night. Bronny made his Lakers debut, his NBA debut. Jimmy, roll the clip.
The first father-son duo to play together in an NBA game. This is all in the family.
So, like, there are people out there with a lot of takes, man. Daniel, let's first and foremost start by saying it was a really cool moment. Forced or not forced, it was still a cool moment to see a father and son, play together, even enter the game together. That was a really cool moment. And I feel like a lot of people wanted to take that moment away from LeBron. I want to get your thoughts on it before I really dive a little bit deep into it. But Daniel, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that people really had a difference of looking at two different people and how they're family members and saying that's not normal. And that's a terrible thing for winning. That's a terrible thing for the culture. That's a terrible thing for the NBA. That's bullshit, respectfully. This was one of the, at least from my time watching sports, it was one of the coolest moments I've ever seen. And I think you just have to look at it from the sheer perspective that there's only been 4, duos, father-son duos, I believe, in the past 40 years that have done this and have accomplished this. And I think it is something where that's a feat that LeBron's going to look at for the rest of his life, that Bronny's going to look at for the rest of his life. And that's something that he can hang his hat on. I think that's something to be proud of. And when people discuss, hey, Bronny shouldn't have played in that game. Bronny didn't deserve to play in that game. Bronny was handed this. JJ Redick made this a bigger story by even playing Bronny in this game when he could have just sat him. Respectfully, what are you talking about? I don't think that's the case. I think when you drafted Bronny, you put yourself in this position where you are making this story. And I think JJ Redick made the right decision. And I saw people saying, hey, Bronny should have played when he deserved it. He should have played 10 games into the season. He should have played 25 games in the season, not opening night. Maybe he's not the best player. Maybe he's not, quote unquote, deserving of the actual talent. But when you're the head coach of the basketball team and you have Bronny on your team, you are trying to get him the experience. You're trying to build up his confidence. So I think it was the right thing. And in my opinion, at least you got the story out of the way. And I think that's the biggest difference between the two schools of thoughts right now, saying, hey, people don't think that Bronny should have played opening night. And I just disagree. I think it was the right move. I think it was the right move with the cards that you were dealt. And I think that it was the right move for Bronny's future career. I think if you wouldn't have played him opening night, then everybody's waiting for that story. Everybody's waiting for that moment. And now it's kind of over. And now you look at the whole situation between the two, and it's a storyline that's it's there for the rest of the season, but it's not on the forefront of everybody's mind. When are they going to play together? When are they going to get on the court together? It's not the case anymore. So now you look at it, now they can kind of move forward, and now they can project into the future, and they can project, hey, what's my season going to look like after this? So I kind of want to switch now to how did the Lakers look beyond, right? Beyond just Bronny and Bronny James. And I think that LeBron is focused, but I think that they look good, to be honest. I think JJ Redick did a very good job. And I think that's something else where I saw a lot of people on social media discussing, saying JJ Redick didn't do a good job as his, opening debut. And I think that's BS. The dude won his first game, and I just like the way he's carrying himself. And I've always been a huge fan of JJ Redick. And like I said, I think that what he's doing, you go look at some of the sets that he ran, post timeout, post first half, he ran some very intricate sets and they worked. And I think he's got obviously a very smart basketball mind. And I think he's got a good grasp of the talent that they have on the Lakers and what it's going to take for them to succeed this season. So I like what the Lakers got going on. I think they looked very good game one. And I just, like I said, going back to the whole Bronny and LeBron, it's a fascinating discussion. It's something that everybody shouldn't be haters of. I know people think that Bronny shouldn't be an NBA player. Put your bias aside, put your thoughts aside, and at least acknowledge how amazing this feat was. So I think it was very cool to see. I think that this is a once in a generation type of thing. I don't think we're going to see this for the next 20 years. So very, very cool thing to witness. And I think it was the right move to play him game one, get this out of the way. And respectfully, it seems like this team and this organization, they want to give Bronny a chance to be a successful NBA player. And I think that you play him game one, you getting him these reps, and I think it's a good thing for his confidence. And I just think that it was very cool. And to see him walk on the court and right away Anthony Edwards goes in, talks trash to him, gets up in his face, I think that's something where you got to be, have your welcome to the NBA moment. And he guarded Anthony Edwards. He did very well on defense. And listen, the dude is 19 years old. And if he sat in the corner and if he looked a little off with the ball, it's the NBA. It's his first game. Give him a chance. So I liked what I saw. And like I said, JJ Redick was totally in the right for playing him game one.
So let me just say this. Here's my thoughts. Why does everybody have an opinion on something? Right? It's really not that deep. At the end of the day, for me, it's, you could have said, oh, he play him later in the season. Well, that's not guaranteed. Injuries happen. Yeah. Injuries happen. LeBron is 40 years old. Bronny is 20 years old. Like, anything could have happened in a short time span that moment could have been robbed of them. So I agree with Daniel's point. You kind of get the storyline out of the way. You get these two on the court together. You get that moment for everyone to take it in. People are like, oh, it's nepotism. Is that like anything different from the real world that we deal with every single day? Right? People get handed stuff all the time, not because they work for, but because of who their father is or because of who their mother is. That happens every day. It happens in literally our sports world. Maybe not on the field or on the court, because typically, let's just face it, the parents of these athletes don't stick around the game that long to have this moment. Yeah. But let's not act like we're going to grandstand for nepotism. Let's not do that. It's rooted deeply in the NFL. It's rooted deeply in coaching staffs in the NFL. It's rooted deeply in businesses. I've literally seen it with my own two eyes. People just hand their children stuff who don't have a work ethic worth a lick. Why are we acting like this is some such egregious thing now? And the crazy part is you have people out there making takes who were literally handed positions and opportunities to work in the sports realm because of their father. Mm-hmm. Go figure. Me, I'm much more of the entrepreneur type of mindset. I like to get my own. I didn't have a dad or mom to kind of just hand things to me. I really had to work for everything that I've got. But at the same time, I'm not going to fault someone who has been blessed with those opportunities to where they get to, I guess, inherit a business or inherit a team or inherit opportunities that other people, aren't as fortunate. I'm not going to hate on that. But let's not act like this doesn't happen in the real everyday world. We all know somebody or two or three or four who are literally handed something. And maybe they don't appreciate the moment nearly as much. I think that there's a double-edged sword with LeBron James and Bronny. I feel like, yeah, Bronny probably wouldn't be in this spot this early on had his father not been LeBron. But at the same time, it's also a chip on your shoulder because your dad is up there with one of the top 2 players in NBA history. He's considered the GOAT in some people's eyes. So you start to feel a little bit of a chip on your shoulder to say, hey, you know what? I want to make my own legacy. I want to make something happen because I made it happen. But I ain't going to fault the guy. I'm not going to sit up there and act like, oh my God, nepotism is a thing that's ruining our league. When it literally happens every which way you look at it. Austin Rivers stayed on teams because of his dad. You know what I mean? There are people in coaching roles on staffs in the NFL because of who their fathers are or is. Come on, we've seen it. And we look at it and we say, this person maybe has no business coaching, being in this league, whatever the case may be, but we don't make a big fuss about that. Let's not be weird and be like, hey, because it's LeBron and we need something to hate about. Let's not get weird and be like, hey, we need to ridicule this moment and say that it's forced. If you don't like it, turn it off. It's fine. Make sure you guys do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or when we upload content from the TWSN studios. I want to move on over to the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to run over to the Kansas City Chiefs, and we'll be joined by our guy, Parker Blake, on the show here shortly. Is Parker in the back office with me? Well, let's actually get Parker in for this discussion. Actually, let's get him in for the discussion. So without further ado, TWSN analyst Parker Blake. What's going on, brother?
Morning. How we doing?
Man, how we doing?
Oh, living the dream, brother. Living the dream.
Man, I wanted to get you in here for this Kansas City Chiefs talk because it wouldn't be right if I didn't, rip the Chiefs. I'm sorry. Give my opinion on the Chiefs, and Parker Blake wasn't here front row center for attendance. See, Daniel gets it live right here in studio. But let's talk about it. The Chiefs go out there, they trade for DeAndre Hopkins. And many people, some who like to comment on a show every day, who's a good friend of the show, by the way. His name is Sean Brennan. He will make you believe that the Chiefs three-peat is inevitable. I got to get your guys' thoughts on it. Because for me, I think DeAndre Hopkins is still a talented guy. I think DeAndre Hopkins is a talented receiver, and I think he does a lot of good things for this Chiefs team. I don't know if it changes the trajectory of what I feel their season is going to result in. I think the Chiefs will be in the playoffs. I think the Chiefs will continue to rattle off victories. I do think that when the playoffs start, the Chiefs might have a rude awakening. But, Parker, let's get your thoughts. What are your thoughts? Kansas City Chiefs add DeAndre Hopkins. Is the three-peat inevitable?
I feel like them scrambling to add pieces. I feel like they keep adding pieces, every other week at this point. I feel like that shows that even they're not too confident in their roster. That's what I've said since the offseason. I don't think they have this mega roster. I just think they're a good team that finds ways to win. I wouldn't be surprised if we see them in their first playoff game, struggle and have to make one of these miraculous late game comebacks. I'm not saying that they won't be able to do that, but I do think this is a team that's really leaned on not necessarily the luck, I don't want to say, that they are able to run into, but just having to lean into, hey, we're a team that knows how to win even when times get tough, even when these games get tight, even when stuff isn't going our way, we find ways to make it happen. And that's what's made them a great team and why they're on the verge of that dynasty conversation. However, I don't know. It's kind of – it feels like the Jets move, right? Like, I don't know how moved I am by adding DeAndre Hopkins. I know he's a good player. He's a solid player. He was a great player. I don't know if he is anymore. I do think they needed an addition at receiver. I don't think he's a bad addition at receiver for these guys. But I I don't know how much that really bolsters their roster as much as I like the player and I've liked his career so far. I still think it's going to be the same situation where they're going to be battling teams and they're going to play up and down to competition, and they're just going to be in every game they play. I don't think this is like a explosive trade that's going to really change the course of the league and it's made them now a superpower. I just think they added a piece that they needed. They got a guy out of a situation that obviously, per his comments, he didn't really want to be in. So I like the ad. I think they needed the ad, but I don't know if anything in the NFL is inevitable. I don't know if anything in the NFL is guaranteed. It's a tough league to win in it. Every former player, every coach, every fan will tell you that it's hard to win in the NFL, especially when it comes time for the playoffs. So I'm interested to see how the rest of the season goes for them. There's a long season left and a lot of games left to be played, but I do think we can expect the Chiefs in the playoffs. I think the AFC West has been underwhelming as per normal. And I think it's an easier division for them to win. So they'll be there and they'll win games, but we'll see how far they can get.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at the Chiefs, I think there is definitely a sense that around the league, and whether it comes to fans or whether it comes to people looking at this team and projecting into the season, there's a sense that the Chiefs are inevitable. It's going to happen. And I do think that there is something to be said about when a team is going for something historic like a three-peat, or when a team is on a historic run. Go look at the Golden State Warriors, right? When they had that year where, best record in the NBA history, and somehow, some way they found a way to lose it. So I'm with you, Parker. Nothing, in my opinion, in the NFL is inevitable. And I do think that this team is just putting together good games, and they're somehow finding a way to win. I think I'm going to be curious to see once again to the playoffs, because obviously it seems like they'll make it. What's the team that's going to test them, right? And I think that's going to be the biggest question. I think that there are teams like the Texans, there are teams like the Ravens, and there are teams like the Bills that I think can test this team. But I think it really is going to come down to be honest, I think it is the Cincinnati Bengals. Because when I look at these matchups, and like I said, maybe this is me reading too much into the past, but I'm not confident in the Bills. I think the Houston Texans have looked good in spurts. And the same thing with the Ravens. They've looked good, but it seems like the Chiefs just have their numbers. So, Parker, what do you think is the biggest threat to the Kansas City?
Well, before we even do that, somebody said in the comment section, I want to make sure I get to it. It said, because one thing I want to do is I want to get out of, and maybe these teams are just always going to be grouped together, but I really want to get out of, when we talk about Bengals, I want to stop mentioning the Chiefs. When we talk about Chiefs, I want to stop mentioning Bengals. I want to give these teams their flowers. Yeah. One thing I will say is someone saying Malik is praying and wishing on the Chiefs' downfall. Me, no, never. I want to see the best versus the best. I want to see the Chiefs at their absolute strength, being able to take on some of the better echelon teams in the league and do so in a convincing fashion. That's what I want. I really like to see the best versus the best. And that might seem like I'm being very, sarcastic, I guess. I'm not, though. I really want to see the best versus the absolute best. So to Daniel's point, Parker, in terms of the three-peat, I guess we can talk about it. Who do you see as the realistic threat to the Kansas Chiefs' chances?
Well, I mean, even just looking at the rest of their regular season schedule, right? I mean, they have to play the Buccaneers, who are a scrappy team. And I mean, the Chiefs were only able to beat the Falcons by 5 points. Mm-hmm. That Falcons-Buccaneers game was a battle. I think the Buccaneers, we've talked about it. I've talked about it a lot. I think they're just a really scrappy team. They find ways to lose games, it feels like, a lot of the time, but they're going to stay in a game. They're going to challenge you. They're going to stress you. Like Daniel brought up, and you brought up this Bills team, I think, looks like a wagon right now. They're kind of a roller coaster like they always are, but I think that's always a good game between those two teams. Last time they played the Chargers, they only won by 7. That's a divisional opponent. This Browns team is going to be interesting. We'll see how Jameis looks. We'll see if any of the other quarterbacks in this room get another opportunity. I'm interested to see how this Houston game goes, the Steelers game. I mean, they have a lot of regular season games that still, I think, could be interesting matchups that they could find a way to lose. Especially, I mean, these divisional games are never easy. It doesn't matter how good or bad one of the teams is. They always come down to the wire. But I really do think, I mean, we saw how that Ravens game looked in the playoffs last year, but I think this is even a different and a better Ravens team than it was last season. And I think that'd be a fun matchup again. And I get like Daniel brought up, the Bengals, don't look like a great team right now, but we all know that the Bengals can turn it on when, the weather starts getting a little colder, that snow starts falling. They seem to figure it out every single season. So it's the NFL. So I don't think any team is immune to a loss. I don't think that any team is immune to losing to what's considered a bad team. I don't think any team is really, even week to week, just a superpower that can't be stopped. And so when it comes to teams that I think can stretch them, I really do think it is every team that they're going to face, because they're all NFL teams. They're all guys getting paid out there to go win games and do their jobs. And we'll see what some of these matchups look like near the end of the season. Maybe some teams have kind of, fallen out of, the season and aren't playing as tough. But I think whenever it's the Chiefs on the field with you, everyone wants to play up. Everyone wants to knock off the champ. So especially when you're back-to-back defending champions looking for that three-peat. So not only in the regular season do I think there's opportunities for them to kind of miss a step and fall off a little bit here and there. And we all know how streaky the NFL, or really just pro sports in general, can be. It's a game of runs, right? Or how many wins can you string together? How many losses can you string together? So especially once they get to the playoffs, I think every game has the potential to knock them out, just like every other team. I don't think they're immune to a loss. I really don't. I don't think this Chiefs team is a superpower just based on their roster construction. I know Andy reads the guy. Mahomes is the guy. Travis Kelce keeps burning me on bets, so I keep saying I'm out on Travis Kelce this year, but we'll see how that looks like when they get there. But I don't know, man. I don't love this Chiefs roster. I don't love how it's built. I don't love the pieces they have. I know they have some really good pieces in Chris Jones and Mahomes, but at the end of the day, I mean, they have a roster that can be beat. They're an NFL team that can be beat, and so I think it's any given week for them. I know they're hot right now. They've been a dominant team in the past, but I don't think it's a one team or two team thing. I think any team can knock this team off. They just have to either catch the Chiefs on a bad week, or they have to have a great game, a combination of both. But that's not unheard of.
Sean, I appreciate you adding to the Kansas City Chiefs discussion here, first and foremost. I think a lot of y'all are extremely educated, and people are making a lot of great takes in the comment section saying, that the Chiefs defense is 6-0, not Mahomes. I would say like Mahomes. I don't know if the Chiefs wouldn't be 6-0 without Mahomes, and that might sound crazy. I just think that the way he's playing this season has left to be a lot to be desired. I just wonder, is this Chiefs defense really that good to the point where no matter who the quarterback was, they'd probably be in a similar spot? I think they'd have a winning record. Maybe not 6-0, but I definitely think they'd have a winning record. Sean, to your point, you said everyone is so quarterback obsessed. I agree. And you talked about how you said I think you might have deleted the comment actually, but he said you can't score on them, you can't run on them. You can't run on them, you can't pass on them, you can't score on them. Good luck. Well, I'll push back and I say the Bengals did that pretty regularly against them when they faced them. So I disagree with that. I do think that this Chiefs team is beatable. I do think their defense is beatable. I do think that their corners are the strong part of their defense. Chris Jones is still Chris Jones. He is who he is, but I don't see you guys as some impenetrable force personally. I think the Chiefs are extremely beatable and you can score on them. I just think, maybe it's the talent they're facing, but I definitely think the Ravens did some good things against them. The Bengals definitely did some great things against them. I'll push back on the notion that you can't have success offensively against this Kansas City Chiefs team. Their defense is good. It's just not as good as you're making them out to be. That's just what I think. Daniel, is there anything that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that you're right. And I think their team there, like the record shows they're great right now. And I think that they are all around a great in the moment fourth quarter, hey, time management, timeliness. I think that they're great at that. But the same thing comes where Patrick Mahomes, and we have to go off of what we've seen in the past, right? And what was the 2 times we've seen Patrick Mahomes lose in the playoffs? Because that's what I'm projecting right now, the playoffs, right? It was late in the game, getting pressure on Patrick Mahomes, and it was him making mistakes late in the game. And I think that really is one of the formulas to where that's how you win a football game. And that's not just directed at Patrick Mahomes. That's directed at every single quarterback. That's directed at Jared Goff in the playoffs with the Detroit Lions last year. It's making your team look really one-dimensional. I think that's something that teams have the chance to do. So I think, Parker, you brought up a great point, and so do you, Malik, about how these teams can play the Chiefs. It's not like the Chiefs are dominating right now. So You just hope for good health for the rest of the season for the Chiefs' sake, and you hope to see which teams match up against them in the playoffs. And for anybody who is wishing and hoping for the Chiefs' downfall, 3 teams playing against them in the playoffs is better than 2. So I think if you're looking at these opposing teams, the Texans, the Ravens, those are the teams that have the chance to get the number 1 seed, and obviously some other teams. But that's the chance that, hey, if you really want to go and say, what's the best way for the Chiefs to lose? If you play more games in the playoffs. So that would happen if they don't get the number 1 seed.
Moving the ball up and down on a defense is having success, Sean. No matter which way you slice it. Yes, the Bengals scored 25 points, but they also left points out on the board against them. They literally went up and down the field on that Chiefs defense. Your defense had a couple of stops, but outside of that, the Bengals offense did what they wanted to against that Chiefs defense. Let's not let the end result cloud your memory. The Bengals offense ran roughshod on the Chiefs defense that day. The Bengals amassed over 100 yards from the tight end position on the Chiefs defense that day. Let's talk about it. The difference maker was not the Chiefs offense. It was Burrow getting sacked and getting strip sacked. In basically we basically gave you guys a go-ahead touchdown essentially at that point. Let's not let the end result cloud your memory of how that game actually turned out. And again, you guys can talk about it, and you talk about how the Chiefs allow 17 points per game. I'll take that all day. Yes, you might do that against other teams. You didn't do that against the Bengals that day. Well, you didn't. And routinely, your defense has struggled against this Bengals team. Again, I have a funny feeling that those teams are going to meet each other again. And Terrell Buchanan, you're 100% right, brother. The end result is all that matters. But what I will say is, I appreciate y'all because y'all are 2 of the realest Chiefs fans, not realist, but realist Chiefs fans I know. Y'all can take it on the chin a little bit. I just also don't want y'all to be set up for failure. National media, everybody else will tell you, this Chiefs team is 6-0. It's inevitable. It's blah, 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 blah. It's the whole 9 yards. I'm here to tell y'all, man, the Steelers team a couple years back were running roughshod through the league, and they were just finding a way to scrap out games. What I think could be the difference maker as to why you guys don't repeat or don't, go. I think you guys are going far in the playoffs regardless. But why I don't think you guys will be in the Super Bowl, or why I think you guys don't repeat, what might hurt you is the fact that your offense is so reliant and so predicated on the defense to carry the day. One position group can't rely this much on another position group. That 49ers game, realistically, should have been a loss. It really should have with the performance your offense put on the board. But your defense showed up in such a big way, and luckily Brock Purdy was even worse, I would say. And you could blame it on injuries. All you could do is basically play the team that's in front of you. All I'm going to say for you Chiefs fans out there is, again, I think you guys have a winning culture there. You guys find a way to win these gritty games. But again, do not let that cloud your judgment of what your weaknesses are on your team. Don't think that just because you're 6-0, it's good enough. Or the product you guys put on the football field is a championship level team, because this is not a championship level team right now, respectfully. And he says Sean Brennan says the Steelers didn't have a championship pedigree that this team has. Come on, man. At the end of the day, they still were finding a way to win, a lot like the Chiefs are finding a way to win. And your superstar quarterback, who's been allotted as a game changer or the best quarterback in the league, has more interceptions than he has touchdown passes this year. What's crazy? The last couple of years when we talked about how Mahomes has had the most turnover-worthy plays since, I think, 2018, that just have not resulted in turnovers, actually, it's finally now catching up. But this has always been MO. Has always thrown opportunities to the opposing teams. It's always been there. So I don't know if this should be as big of a shock as we're making it out to be, because he has had the most turnover-worthy plays since 2018. He had I think he led the league in the most dropped interceptions too. Mm-hmm. So I just think it's one of those things where it's catching up to him now. We're now like, oh my God, the fact that we're actually seeing the number, more interceptions versus touchdown ratio, it's like, damn, it's cause for concern. But if people were holding on to those picks and stuff like that the last couple of years, it probably will look very similar. Daniel?
Yeah, and I think that's the scary part, in my opinion. And I think that's where, what am I scared of if I'm opposing teams? What really concerns me? It is Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo. And that's what concerns me. I think that those two are two of the best. And you go look at the 49ers game, I think that's a perfect example. Mahomes threw for like 150. I don't even think he threw for a touchdown, 2 interceptions, but they still found a way to win. You go look at even the rushing game when I was watching, Kareem Hunt at times looked like he was getting absolutely nothing. But when they get down to the goal line, when they get down to the red zone, somehow, some way, they figured it out. They punched the ball in twice. I think Kareem Hunt had 2 rushing touchdowns. So that's what concerns me. And I think that's what makes this team so great. It's not, and this may come off as disrespectful, but look at what we're talking about with Patrick Mahomes. He makes big time plays in big time moments. Look at the 49ers game, the 2 runs, huge runs down the left sideline. Obviously, that was the one that kind of did it. But like you said, he has never been immune to these bad decisions, to these turnover worthy plays. That's his game, and that's okay. But it's the great equalizer, I feel like, for their team. And for other teams, it's different, right? We say great quarterback can overcome bad coaching. Well, I think great coaching can also take a quarterback that's having some struggles and take them over the top still. So I think that's probably my biggest takeaway from the first 6 weeks so far is, hey, this is the Patrick Mahomes I think we've all seen. And we can all, can attest to seeing Patrick Mahomes have some chinks in his armor. But Andy Reid has really shocked me, and Steve Spagnuolo. So, Parker, what's your overall thoughts on how the rest of this Chiefs team has played?
Yeah, no, I have to address. I mean, Sean keeps bringing up that it's a defensive led team. I don't disagree. I mean, you're top 3 in run defense, per yards. However, I mean, you're barely a top half of the league passing defense, and you have Mahomes. Again, the turnovers are gonna catch up to you at some point, I would assume. I mean, again, some teams, the key to the Super Bowl isn't about your roster construction. It isn't about the talent you have on the field. It's about luck and health. I've always said that, and I always will say that at any level of football. Championships come down to luck and health. And so I am concerned just with, I mean, they're going to let teams throw the ball on them. We've seen some of these top of the league rushing teams absolutely take it to them. I mean, you have one of Brock Purdy's worst games of his career with 3 interceptions. You're only able to win by barely 2 scores. I mean, that's the thing that's concerning to me. And again, it's the thing that the Chiefs are always able to lean on, is they're just able to win games that maybe they shouldn't. I mean, the Bengals spot them 7 points. The Ravens lose because of an inch or 2 in the back of the end zone. I mean, it's just all of these games where they're able to find a way to win. And again, you have to give them credit for that. I don't want to discredit that at all, because that's what football comes down to. It's what all sports come down to, is finding a way to win. Like you said, making plays in the big moments. But I don't want to act like this is a defensive juggernaut that people can't hang with. I mean, people have been able to run the ball on them. Again, they're at the 13th in the league as far as passing yards allowed. They're not allowing points, but I don't think that's a merit of their defense. I mean, if you look at all 3 of those Brock Purdy interceptions, those are balls that shouldn't have been thrown. That's a quarterback that people talk about not being an elite quarterback, missing a number of his, star talent on that team. You're missing Ayuk, you're missing Debo. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into some of these games that they're winning. And again, that's just, surviving the league. And that's where you have to credit the Chiefs. It's not like they're injury free and they're finding ways to make it work. And like I brought up earlier, they're adding the pieces that they need to keep moving through the season. But again, that's why I just can't talk about them as just this juggernaut that people should be afraid of, because they show week in and week out that teams can beat them. It's just one of those things where I think it happens at, multiple levels of football, where sometimes teams just play certain teams, and I think they get too in their head about it, and they make mistakes that they should be making. They try and make these plays because they think they're playing this big juggernaut. And if you're just able to stick to your game and play your game, I think the Chiefs are a very beatable team, just like every other team in the NFL. And that's where I think the Bengals had their success early on, when Joe Burrow was still on his rookie contract, early in his rookie contract, where they were just playing their game. They went out there and said, hey, this is another NFL game. We got to do what we do. And we can just go win this football game. And that's why they were able to find that success. You can't put teams in the spotlight. You can't put them on a podium. You just have to play the team that you're faced with that day. And I think if teams are able to do that on them, the Chiefs will find losses on the schedule. They can find losses in the playoffs. But what happens is teams just, I think, do kind of implode. They get worried of like the Mahomes effect, the Spagnuolo effect, the Chris Jones effect. Like they do have great players and they have great coaching, but I don't think this is an amazing team. And Sean's bringing up injuries again. Every team in the NFL is injured right now, especially that 49ers team that you're only able to beat by 10. especially that Chargers team you're only able to beat by 7. I mean, no team's immune to injury. No team is immune to trying to survive in the league. That's just what football is, and the Chiefs find ways to win. And again, I'll say it over and over again, and I always will. But at the end of the day, this isn't a team that I'm just going to throw $1 million on to win the Super Bowl, no matter what the odds are, because I don't believe that.
100%.
I got a quick question real quick. I'm just curious because I thought this was really interesting. Wes Huday said, like, why would teams in general trade with the Chiefs? So I want to get your thoughts. Like, genuinely, is that something, if you were in the front office, you would try to avoid making them better? And do you think that even goes through a team like the Titans' mind when you're trading DeAndre Hopkins? Like, I'm just curious.
I think it's a give and take. I don't think it's like, oh, we're worried about the Chiefs three-peating or something like that. I just think it's like, hey, can we help we know we're not a championship level team right now, right?
Yeah.
But can we go out there and can we add draft assets that could help us get to that level one day? I don't think as a team you think about trying to stop a team. Now, I know that it was this weird pack. I don't know if you guys knew that amongst teams back when the Patriots were at the height of their stuff, where a lot of teams wouldn't trade with the Patriots. The Bengals were one of the few teams that actually did trade with them. And a lot of people just didn't want to make them better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it took them years to build a dynasty to where, it took them years to where they start building a dynasty to where people started almost fearing them and trying to do things to actually make them worse or weaken this team. Right. But yeah, no, I don't think if you're a Titans team, you're like, oh man, we're worried about the Chiefs. We're not gonna trade DeAndre Hopkins, an aging wide receiver, who hasn't looked amazing or hasn't looked like himself recently. I don't think you worry about that too much. But Sean, you got what you asked for, brother. This is a show that's a friend of the fans. You thought I missed that comment you made the other day where you said, I've never known Malik to run from smoke. Or I'm sorry, the Chiefs smoke or the Chiefs topic. This ain't me running, brother. I promise you I was gonna give you your day in court. So here was your day. I just didn't know if you would like what we had to say about the Chiefs. Again, I view you guys as skating by, and that's with all due respect. I hold the Chiefs to a high standard. I view them as the team to beat in the AFC. That being said, I don't think that there's some juggernaut that you're making them out to be. And I'm really curious if you're gonna still be on the lives, brother, as I hope you are, man, because you're definitely a friend of the show. I'm just very curious if you'll be showing your face in February on the show if things don't pan out the Chiefs' way. If you guys could do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or when we upload content. I want to move on over to LA. We haven't really talked about the Rams too much on the show, but there's been talks about Cooper Kupp being potentially traded. How do we feel about that, man? How do we feel about Cooper Kupp potentially being traded away from the Rams? Parker, what's your thoughts?
I mean, you want to talk about teams I don't want to trade with. I think the Rams do a great job in the offseason as far as maximizing their draft capital and investing in these players. I think they always bring in quality pieces. And I think, if they're willing to move on from a Cooper Kupp, which, I mean, you can't really tell, right? I mean, Cooper Kupp addresses it and says he's aware of the rumors, but that doesn't really say he's interested or the team's interested or they're not. But I mean, I think he's a commodity that a lot of teams would appreciate bringing into their organization. I think he can still provide a lot for a team. However, I think if I'm trading with the Rams, especially interconference, I'm being very careful with the draft capital that I want to allocate to those guys. But I think I'd be really excited to see him on a team that probably has a little bit more potential than the Rams do right now.
Yeah, and I think when I look at the Rams, that's what concerns me with them. And I'm trying to figure out what direction that they want to go. I think a lot of it has to do with, obviously, their head coach, Sean McVay. How long does he want to be there? And then two, what's the direction with Matt Stafford in your quarterback position? Because I look at this team before the season, I said, hey, I think they could compete. And even so far this year, they're 2-4, but most of that has been without Cooper Kupp, and all of that has been without Puka Nacua. So if I'm the Rams personally, I don't know if I move a Cooper Kupp right now. I don't know. I think that I look at my team and I think that I like what they did to their defense line. Obviously, they got Byron Young. I like that they added Jared Verse. He's right now the favorite to be defensive rookie of the year. Braden Fisk has looked damn good. I just don't know if I move Cooper Kupp unless if I'm willing to trade Matt Stafford or get my franchise quarterback this upcoming year in the draft. And the reason why I say that is if you're keeping Matt Stafford on your team, you are going to try to compete for a championship. And the best way for Matt Stafford to have success is with Cooper Kupp. We've seen time and time again. So for me, if I'm trading Cooper Kupp, I am doing a full rebuild. And I think you could get a lot of assets. You could get, second, third round pick for Cooper, and even something like Stafford. Hey, you either trade him away or you go and get somebody this offseason to play behind him, to learn behind him. But I don't know if I'm the Rams right now, if I could look at myself and say, hey, now's the right time, especially with Puka Nacua coming back, unless if I'm ready to go out and get a new quarterback and have a new season.
I just don't love this quarterback class, to be honest with you. And it's a give and take, right? It's like maybe this is a year where you throw aside the potential future quarterback, although this is a quarterback-driven league that no team will ever really do that. Maybe you kind of throw that to the side and you say, hey, what pieces can we add to this team that will help us build long-term? And maybe we get a stopgap at quarterback position if Stafford decides to retire or something like that. Maybe we grab a guy that maybe we take a chance on a guy like Trey Lance, who's just sitting out there, and we say, hey, you know what, you'll be our quarterback if Stafford decides to move on. And we'll just build this defense up, and then to where we can grab a quarterback that we think can build, we can build with and do something special. I don't know. That's just my thoughts. Appreciate Bengals Jim in the chat today too, man. He says Rams are in rebuild mode. For the right offer, they trade Matt Stafford too. I agree. I mean, I think you can, but I just don't know who's making that phone call right now for Matt Stafford. Yeah. I don't know who's making that phone call for Matt Stafford right now. I certainly think that he still has talent. I still think that he can offer a team something, but that guy feels like he's more on his way out than he's sticking around. So when you allocate those resources to a quarterback, this late into the season to come in and learn your system and do so many different things, are you going to be able to reach your full potential with this offense? It's like a star. It's like the NBA in a player, a team going out there trading for a superstar player midway through the season. Is he going to be at his absolute best while still trying to find his way to gel with the team? It's so hard for quarterbacks. Quarterback's the most important position in sports. You have to be the leader. You have to know the ins and out of the offense. And it's one of those positions where no matter how talented you are, if you get traded midseason, it does nothing to really help that team. I feel like that year. Parker, would you say I'm accurate in making that assessment?
Yeah, I mean, this is a year, as far as the draft's concerned, I think if teams are able to, for the first time in literally the history of the draft, accurately evaluate and assess and value the quarterbacks in this draft class, if they're able to bring in one of these guys that I think has, there's a bunch of guys with a second round grade, in my opinion. You always got to adjust those. A second round grade quarterback's a first round draft pick. But if you're able to have one of these guys fall to you, I think keeping Matt Stafford in the building and then bringing in one of these quarterbacks to develop under Matt Stafford with his years of league experience, with the things that he's seen, I think he's a very knowledgeable guy. I think he's just losing his touch a little bit. I think you could really have a nice guy that can step in a year or two when Matt Stafford's ready to go and be a very dominant force on your team for the future, especially with the talent you're able to bring in at the receiving positions, the running back position, the tight end position. I think they're building a great offensive line. I think you can bring in one of these guys that might slip in the draft a little bit, put him behind Matt Stafford and really develop him, be patient with that kid and let him fill into that role. And you really kind of like what we saw last time. We thought the Rams were going to be in tear down mode and they just kind of reloaded and carried on. I think you could do that right again after Matt Stafford. But I do wonder again how much teams are going to overvalue some of these quarterbacks. I've said the same thing with the offensive tackle class. I think this was a year where there's a lot of talent at non, quote unquote premium positions to go around in the league, that if you had a first round that was full of some of this other talent, that would be really in the Rams' benefit. As far as just the Rams organization goes, I think they do, like I said earlier, I think they do a great job of reloading, and they're able to limit transition between kind of these versions of teams that they have through the years. I think they do a good job of rolling that over. And again, I think on the inverse of that, if you're able to move a guy like Stafford, you're able to move a guy like Cooper Kupp, I think another team can become really competitive. And I think the Trey Lance point is interesting. I mean, you're going to have to trade for Trey Lance. I believe he's still under contract, but I think he'd be an interesting little wrinkle into this offense. Again, getting someone more athletic back there. I would hate to see the Rams come away with like a Carson Beck or a Quinn Ewers, but if you can get one of these guys that can almost be more like a Bo Nix for you, where he's not going to be this elite talent as far as his passing ability, but he's going to be this hybrid style guy that can make the easy throws if you keep it easy for him, which I think Sean McVay does a great job of doing. He can really run this offense efficiently as well as give you something on the ground. And so I think if you can, Trey Lance might be another great guy to bring in if you can work that trade out for something cheap and put behind Stafford. And again, the biggest thing with Trey Lance has always been a reps thing, right? He just needs the reps. He didn't have a lot of college reps, doesn't have a lot of NFL reps. He's behind the curve developmentally. And so that's why I'd like to see one of these guys in the draft kind of fall to the Rams and bring that in to kind of be the successor to Matt Stafford. But yeah.
Yeah. One last one I want to kind of touch on was something everybody was talking about was the potential trade of Stafford to the Vikings. And funny enough, they played today. What's your guys' thoughts on that? Because like when I think about it, like it makes sense in the sense that if the Minnesota Vikings think that, hey, we can't win right now a Super Bowl with Sam Darnold, because right now, I think that this Vikings team, it may sound crazy, but teams go on runs all the time. I think that this Vikings team could get hot enough and has the makings to have a potential Super Bowl run this year. So is there a world, and I guess, Parker, I'll start with you, that trade makes even any sense, a straight up swap? Sam Darnold, Matt Stafford gets reconnected with Kevin O'Connell. Does that make any sense to you?
I don't know what world people live in that they think Matt Stafford's a better quarterback than Sam Darnold right now. I think Sam Darnold's playing better than Matt Stafford is, and I think he has a higher ceiling than Matt Stafford does right now. I think Matt might have the better floor, but there's always the mid-season to late season collapse by Sam Darnold that people have been citing and kind of waiting for. But I don't think if you're the Vikings, you move on from Sam Darnold for a guy like Matt Stafford, because again, like we brought up earlier, you're moving on from Sam Darnold, who could still have a lot of time left in his career, honestly, if you do choose to extend him. I know we talked about that a few weeks ago. But if you bring in a Matt Stafford, that's like a 2-year Band-Aid, or are you just trying to get to the next quarterback class? You're just trying to get a couple years down the road and kick that can before you have to make a decision there. I guess you have JJ McCarthy. I totally forgot about JJ McCarthy. He's still there. So I don't understand, I guess, bringing in a guy like Matt Stafford. I think you have shown that you can win with Sam Darnold. And I understand he doesn't have the resume of winning that, you'd like your quarterback to have going into the playoffs, but outside of a year or maybe 2 years, does Matt Stafford have that resume? I mean, he had that one Super Bowl that they somehow fell their way into, and at home, like I don't understand. Like I just don't love that trade idea, and I could definitely see it happening. It's a very NFL move to go get a guy like Matt Stafford when you have a guy like Sam Darnold and just kill Sam Darnold's confidence and make sure he never goes anywhere else in the league, but always plays really good games against the Vikings in his future career. But yeah, I personally don't understand that move at all.
Yeah. Want to thank you guys again for tuning in to the Sit Down with Malik Wright Morning Show. Make sure you guys give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live or when we upload content. We're live with TWSN analyst Parker Blake and obviously me and Daniel. Let's move it over to the Bengals. The conversation being had right now is should Joe Burrow, be talked about a little bit more in the MVP conversation? I definitely think those conversations get louder if the Bengals manage to move to 4-4. I believe that. Statistically speaking, he is putting up a very, very good football season.
Yes.
And, that's what you sort of base it off of, right? The numbers. Does it always look pretty? No. Does he miss throws? Yes. Does he miss guys wide open? Yes. Does he not get his tight ends involved? Yes. But statistically speaking, he's having the best season of his career. You know what's kind of crazy? I think I saw something. Patrick Mahomes is second as far as favorite to be league MVP. That's interesting to me. I want to hear what you guys' thoughts are. Parker, let's go to you, and then we'll go to Daniel.
Yeah, I always put my preseason Joe Burrow MVP bet in, and then when we talked about it a few weeks ago, when the Bengals seemed to be spiraling and he got up to plus 2,200, I doubled down and I got back in it. So I feel I gotta put my bias out there just before I start saying anything. But if you look around the league, I mean, Joe Burrow's fourth in completion percentage. He's sixth in yards. I mean, what quarterbacks are doing the quarterback things better than Joe Burrow right now? I mean, you look at the MVP candidates. I know people are talking about the guys like Lamar Jackson, somehow Patrick Mahomes right now. Not that he's not a great quarterback, but you can't tell me this season's been an MVP season. I think Jared Goff's the one guy that I like in that conversation, but even statistically, he doesn't look great. He's got a great completion percentage, but he's also not doing too much. I mean, he's kind of this team just looks good overall, this Lions team. And you see guys like Josh Allen in that conversation. But when you look just at the numbers, and I know there's more that goes into it than just the numbers, but you look at the numbers, look at his on-field performance, and there's not a quarterback in the league right now outside of maybe a Lamar Jackson, maybe a Jared Goff, that are really helping their teams win or trying to get their teams over that finish line like a Joe Burrow. I think Joe Burrow is performing at an all-time high. I think he's on pace to have a career year, I believe. I need to run those numbers again, but I mean, this is a top of the league quarterback that I really do believe his defense is just letting him down in the MVP conversation, but I don't feel like I've always thought that's a weird factor to have. I don't think, again, wins aren't a QB stat. I know it's overdrawn, overplayed at this point, but you can't just, if you just take this Bengals offense and compare it to offenses around the league, or just even Joe Burrow as a quarterback in the MVP conversation, I don't understand how he's not at least in the top 3, top 5 in this conversation. It's insane to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think one of my biggest takeaways for this is the dude is protecting the football. And when you go back, obviously the Chiefs fumble was huge. 2 interceptions on the season through 7 games is absurd. I'm sorry. And for a dude who I believe he's top 5 in total pass attempts, and that's something where, and once again, I really don't want to sound like I'm ragging on Patrick Mahomes, but I just don't understand how he is the heavy favorite to win MVP, but the dude has 8 interceptions, respectfully. And I think that when we're talking, let's talk strictly award. I'm not talking about the Chiefs. I'm not talking about their Super Bowl.
Wait, he's the favorite?
He is, yes. And I believe
It should be Lamar Jackson.
It should
Lamar
be.
Jackson's playing like the best quarterback in the league. Make no mistake about it. That dude's having a crazy year. Sorry.
Yeah. Or I might be mistaken.
I thought he was
Lamar
second.
might be
I think
over
he's second.
Patrick Mahomes now.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lamar just overtook him, which I think, yes, that needs to have happened after last week. So, and I think that's right. And I think that Joe Burrow needs to be in those discussions, but I think that now is the time for anybody who's looking to bet on Joe Burrow. Now would be the time, because this is before their big win, in my opinion. I think that this Philadelphia Eagles game really is the point where, let's talk about his MVP candidacy. This is the point where it could turn around, because I think that he's got the numbers to back it up. He's got, the track record through, 7 games. You look at, his total touchdowns. I believe he's 2 behind the league leader in Baker Mayfield, or 3 behind him. And that's something where pure stats wise, that's not going to change the rest of the season, barring health. This is a team that's not going to run the ball 60% of the time. You look at the Chiefs, they're a team where they don't really care about Patrick Mahomes' stats. So I think that Joe Burrow deserves to be in the conversation. The front runner, I don't know about yet. But I think very shortly, especially if the wins start catching up, that's what will definitely take this over the top. And I don't think that the MVP needs to be 13, on a team that wins 13 or 14 games, but that tends to help. So I think that a lot of the times MVP comes from a team that wins 12 plus games. So I think that the Bengals really are going to have to put on a crazy stretch for him to win that MVP.
Savati, what the hell are you going on about in the comment section, bro?
What you said?
What are you talking about? I'm not going to repeat some of the stuff he said, but listen, I'll just say this. Like, what are you talking about, bro? Lamar Jackson's a good talent in the league. He deserved to be MVP. He's 2-time MVP. That's not a fluke award. I would say this is probably the best passing season we've seen Lamar Jackson have. Black Lives Matter has nothing to do with the fact that Lamar Jackson won MVP. Absurd. What the hell are you talking about, bro? So again, we can talk about talent without trying to diminish people here. Like, what are we talking about? Like, and this is a dude that's played for the Ravens. Y'all know I cover the Bengals. I don't give a damn about that. But like, let's not drag race and politics into fucking sports. We're talking about sports here. We're talking about an MVP trophy, dog. Come on. Anyway, like I said, Lamar Jackson playing lights out, playing out of his mind. I think Joe Burrow has a chance to overtake that if the Bengals keep trying to find a way to rattle off these victories, because I do think that it is one of those awards where the league isn't going to try to, make Lamar Jackson a back-to-back MVP, if you will, because, those MVP votes do get a little tiresome, if you will. So that's just my thoughts. I think if the Bengals are able to find a way to rattle off some victories here, you'll see Joe Burrow start to emerge as the MVP frontrunner. That's just my thoughts. If you guys could do me a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or when we upload load content. Park, my man, I appreciate you, man, for joining in on the show. And we'll be back live with you on Tuesday as we discuss all things through for the NFL. But I appreciate you, my man. I hope that you enjoy your football weekend, bro.
Always a pleasure, man. Got a bye week coaching this week, so I'm going to enjoy a nice, relaxing weekend before the
Man.
playoffs start.
Man.
I'm excited for it, man. I appreciate you having me on. I'll see you Tuesday, brother.
Absolutely. I'll see you Tuesday, brother. Enjoy.
Take it easy.
Again, if you guys could do us a huge favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications. Let's move on over to fantasy football. Get you all slated for tonight. Wouldn't be a fantasy football Thursday here at TWSN if we did not have TWSN fantasy football analyst Michael O'Hara rejoining the show. Mike, what's going on, man?
How we doing this morning, Malik? Nice to see you, man.
Nice to see you too, brother. We missed you last week, man, but you're back. You're here. You're ready to go. I gotta ask again, like I do each and every single week. How are you doing on your fantasy football stuff? This season so far.
Well, we're at the point in the year where people are scrapping for the corpse of Sterling Shepard on the waiver wire. So if that tells you anything, I mean, yeah, it's down bad season for a lot of the people like me who are drafting pretty wide receiver heavy. So making do with what we can.
Yeah, man. I listen. Like I said, I think because of you and because of Steve, I think I'm going to try to make a return to fantasy football next year. I took 2 years off. But all this fantasy football talk feels like I'm out of the loop. We always ask Mike on the show how you guys are doing on the show in terms of your fantasy football teams. We never asked Daniel how he's doing.
Yeah.
We never asked Daniel's kind of quiet.
Yeah.
If you guys don't know, we have a TWSN Fantasy Football League where the winner, I believe, gets $4,000. $2,000? Oh, $2,000. So I almost said the wrong number. $2,000. And I think every person who participates gets like $100 or something like that. So we're in a very lucrative TWSN Fantasy Football League. Daniel, how are you doing in your fantasy football?
I at this point, I really just kind of forget about it. I made a terrible trade. No, I'm gonna be honest. I made probably the worst trade I've ever made. And this is the part that irritates me is I had a very good draft. And I am going to toot my own horn real quick. I'm okay with Rashee Rice. I nailed that pick. And I obviously got hurt. I went Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, and Kenneth Walker. All three of those running backs are arguably 3 of the top 5 running backs the rest of the season. I traded away 2 of them, Malik. And that's the thing for me. I got too caught up in what I needed right away versus projecting into the rest of the season. So for me, I'm just scraping by. I think I'm same record as Cincinnati Bengals. I'm 3-4 right now. So
you still have an opportunity to rectify it,
I got
get it back, and get it going. Listen, don't quit on yourself.
I know.
Mike, give him a little pep talk, okay?
3-4 is very recoverable. You can make a push down the stretch. Play the waiver wire well. Play the trading block well. You'll get by, Daniel.
I appreciate that. Yeah, man. I don't know. I'm really down on myself. So I think I just I gotta find some motivation and get back. So
man, it's crazy. He went from being the most confident guy in the world to the confidence is so zapped, man.
I know.
So,
I'm on a 4-game losing streak.
Yeah,
that's a killer.
That'll do it. Listen, guys, I need us to start a petition. We're gonna start a petition to try to get Mike O'Hara actually in the studio for a show.
Yes,
we're gonna start a petition to try to get. Maybe we could get his chops beyond just fantasy football. We got to get him in the show. We're in the same state. We got to make something happen, Mike. But
maybe as soon as next week.
I'm down.
We'll text about it after this. But yeah, sometime in the near future, I may be able to make that trek down to Cincinnati.
I like the sound of that, man. I like the sound of that. Daniel, take it away.
Beautiful. All right. So, Mike, I want to start it off real quick for our fantasy people. And if you guys have any fantasy questions for everybody watching, drop them down below. Well, Mike's going to answer all your fantasy questions, start sits. Obviously, we got Fantasy Football Friday tomorrow. But, Mike, give us some of your takeaways from week 7 that's going to carry on to the rest of the season. It could be player specific. It could be team specific. Let's start off with 2 takeaways from week 7.
Yeah, one of the biggest ones that I this is like the article I write every week for TWSN. I talk about my takeaways, fantasy takeaways from every week. And one of the biggest ones that people are really concerned about is Marvin Harrison Jr. and just like the lack of production, just not living up to his draft capital, both in the NFL draft and fantasy drafts. And the biggest issue to me is how he's been deployed. I looked into how Drew Petzing and this offense is using Marvin Harrison Jr. And the way that a lot of people in the fantasy community describe it is like as the sacrificial X wide receiver. He's just out there running vertical routes. Almost just a shade under 50% of his routes have been goes, posts, and corners. So they're just asking him to go out there and do cardio and just a bunch of these contested catches and just like low catch rate, low percentage looks that Marvin Harrison Jr. is getting. So obviously, like he's struggling to develop into that role. His catch rate is below 50%, so he's catching less than 50% of his targets. It's a disaster for how they're using him. He's not getting him those easy gimme looks that you like to see that provide him a good fantasy floor and base production. So it's just a lot of just like low percentage looks that are just going to leave. It's going to make his production very volatile. It's going to make fantasy managers frustrated with what he's doing on the field. So unless Drew Petzing and this offense decide to use him in a different capacity, I think that the frustrations with Marvin Harrison Jr. are going to continue. And I don't think it's all on the offensive system and the offensive coordinator. I do think you can pin some of it on Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, like just on film, the routes that I've watched, it's not good. He's not separating like you would want him to. But then again, you'd like him to be used in a more creative fashion. So I do think that it could be better, but I'm not super hopeful for his outlook moving forward.
For sure. And I think we got a question I want to get to. And real quick, Sean Brennan said, I don't think DK Metcalf's out for the year. Sean, I might be wrong, but I think he's still, so maybe that was somebody else you're talking about. But a question I want to get to real quick, Mike, for you is somebody was asking about the Bucs wide receiving core. Chris Godwin, obviously likely out for the year. Mike Evans out for a significant period. Who would you be looking to pick up, and who do you think is in the best mold for the Buccaneers wide receiver?
Yeah, so it's really hard to project how they're going to utilize this new trio. It's going to be Jalen McMillan, Trey Palmer, and Sterling Shepard as their top three receivers for the next month or so until Mike Evans comes back. And it's difficult to project how they're going to use them, but the one you want to use, and I'll 100% write up about these takeaways after the week, but you're going to want to find whoever is like the one-to-one Chris Godwin replacement. He's getting a lot of those easy looks, those gimme targets that lead to a really steady floor and high-end production. And I do think that Jalen McMillan is the favorite to get that role, and he is my favorite waiver wire pickup out of this trio. You know what you're getting out of Sterling Shepard. You know what you're getting out of Trey Palmer. Like at the best, you're getting 10 fantasy points per game from those guys. But the way I play fantasy football and the way you should look at these waiver wire pickups and potential adds to your team, you just want to take the upside. Jalen McMillan has that mystery box upside. We don't really know what we're going to get out of him. This is going to be the most he's asked to do on an NFL football field, the biggest role he's going to be asked to take on. And I mean, is he going to be able to run with that role and produce at a really high level? I don't have the answer to that question, but I really do think that he is the guy to target, just given that mystery box upside and just kind of chasing the ceiling outcomes.
For sure. So, Mike, let's get to one more takeaway, and then I want to ask you about, the Thursday night football game. So give me one takeaway. It could even be on the negative side of things of somebody that you saw the past week, or just moving forward. Give me one last takeaway that you learned from last week.
Yeah, it's already kind of coming to fruition. In that article that came out on Tuesday, I said it's time to fire sale all of the Carolina Panthers, get Deontay Johnson and get Chuba Hubbard off your roster. I said Bryce Young is lurking. And I mean, it took a car accident, but he's here. And I really don't see a world where maybe they go back to Andy Dalton for a game or two, but the season's over in Carolina. They're not playing for anything. They're going to see, quote unquote, what they have in Bryce Young. I think we can all pretty confidently say it's not much, but at the end of the day, that's their number one draft pick. They sold the farm for him. They're going to get him out there for games now that the season's over. And I mean, Deontay Johnson, 8.4 combined points, I believe, in 2 games with Bryce Young under center. And for Chuba Hubbard, just like his fantasy value is so heavily tied to just the overall offensive quality. Obviously, that's going to take a hit with Bryce Young coming back. So it's already like with Bryce Young announced the starter this week. And I mean, maybe people don't have the long-term foresight to realize that he's going to be the long-term starter down the stretch for the rest of this year. So maybe you could sell off these guys. But that I said, like, I'm pretty sure the headline for my blurb about the Panthers was like, it's a fire sale time, like get these guys off your roster. And if you have them, they've given you a good 6 weeks, but it's time to move on.
For sure. And I think that's something where I think you could get value, especially a guy like Chuba who's
Yeah.
put
He's
up
still
crazy numbers.
Yeah, RB9, like he still holds some value, just like the people who are in the game log, the box score watchers, like, and just like look at the overall rankings, like he's still the RB9. So I think in with like someone who's a casual and isn't really like looking too deep in these things, like just seeing that RB9 title that could allow him to carry some weight.
So you're saying take advantage of your league mates. You're saying
That is what I am advocating for. Yes, take advantage
uh,
of the people who don't think about things.
I love it. I love it. So Thursday night football, real quick. We got a lot of people are fantasy, viable this week. Cooper Kupp obviously back. I believe they said Puka might be back tonight, which is crazy to think about. After hearing it, they'd say, it'd be multiple weeks. So what's your thoughts overall on, let's talk mainly, the fringe guys, but give me Cooper Kupp, your thoughts on him tonight, as well as some of the fringe guys like a Jordan Addison, etc.
Yeah, so obviously, like, luckily this game is just full of like a just kind of set it and forget it guys. You're getting Justin Jefferson in your lineup, you're getting Aaron Jones in your lineup, and Cooper Kupp is the a set it and forget it guy for me. Early in the week, I was concerned because Sean McVay was kind of like non-committal to what sort of workload they were going to give him. But now that he's logged 3 straight full practices this week, and like even that he's on the trade block, like if he's on the trading block, like I would not be shocked if they're just force feeding this guy targets just to pump up his numbers. And like you mentioned earlier in the show, trying to fetch a 2nd round draft pick for him. So Cooper Kupp for me is definitely a guy that you'll be getting in the starting lineups. And then for some of the more fringe guys, Sam Darnold and Jordan Addison, I'm 100% starting them if I have them. I mean, obviously it depends on like everyone's roster, but for the most part, I consider these guys starts. The Rams passing defense has gotten better in recent weeks, but I do still think this is a secondary to attack. They're allowing 7 yards per pass play, which is the fourth most of any defense. They've allowed 3 different receivers to hit 120 receiving yards this season. So I'm looking to start Sam Darnold and Jordan Addison. Darnold's been super efficient, super high touchdown rate. So I'm looking for him to pick apart this secondary. And I think Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson have a place to eat against this secondary. And then for Nakua and Hawkinson, obviously both questionable, but even if they do play, I'm benching both of them. It's nothing to do with their talent or anything. It's just their projected workload. Like guys coming back from serious injury, especially the multi-ligament ACL like Hawkinson had, you see a multi-week ramp-up period where they're not on the field for a full complement of snaps. So specifically with Hawkinson, and I expect Nakua to be under the same sort of thing, just not playing a full complement of snaps. So even if either of these guys are active, I would not be relying on either of them this week.
All right. So
Awesome.
that was one half of the law firm. Obviously, Steve's not, on the show tomorrow, and we'll be seeing you tomorrow, Mike. So
yeah, man, and Mike, we're definitely going to make that happen. We're definitely going to have you come and hang out with us in the studio, man. We got to make this happen because it's long overdue. It'll be the first time we even meet face to face too, so it'll be kind of good to have that happen.
I can talk your ear off about fantasy football for more than just 20 minutes.
I believe that's going to happen. I'll get my fantasy ears ready. Mike, appreciate you. Make sure you guys follow my guy, Mike O'Hara, on Twitter. Mike, I don't know if you're an NBA guy, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm pumped up. NBA's back. I got so many bets for the people tonight to kind of go off of. And if you want to make yourself some money, tune in. But Mike, appreciate you. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, guys. Have a good one.
Yes, sir. You too, man. Again, do us a favor, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or when we upload content. Daniel, give me your favorite bets for NFL tonight. I'm going to take it away to the NBA segment after that.
Beautiful. And once again, guys, the QR code, if you guys want our full best bets, we're not just talking NFL. We're not just talking NBA. We got UFC. We've got a whole bunch of bets for you guys. Click the QR code. Subscribe, make sure you guys save some money. Like I said, super affordable. We got a group chat for you guys. So if you guys are interested in betting at all, we're here to help.
I will say this though. We're pushing the Patreon. I got a little bit of an announcement to make. So we have a new website coming. And when this new website launches, you'll be able to get all of our picks through the website actually. So that'll be coming very, very shortly. It was supposed to be here this month. We're still working on it, but we've got some really cool things in the pipeline. So sooner or later, the Patreon won't be a thing, in the near future. And we'll be just telling you guys to head on over to the TWSN website to get all of our picks daily. Terrell Buchanan says, I'm going to beat the table every week for Daniel to get
That's
his
funny.
own segment called What Concerns Me Most.
I feel like I say that a lot.
I think we should do that, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Jimbo, can we make that happen? We'll do that. Well, what concerns me most? Because a lot of things concern Daniel
I guess
most.
so, right?
Daniel, tell us what gets you excited the most for Thursday Night Football tonight.
So what gets me excited is I'm looking at Cooper Kupp and I'm buying into it, man. I'm buying into it. I look at what he's done in the past, and I think that I'm buying into, hey, he is going to return, and maybe he'll have some signs of, okay, maybe some slow starts. But at the end of the day, listen, if there's something I can trust on this team, it is going to be Cooper Kupp. And I look at what he has done so far this year. I mean, in his first game of the season, he had 14 receptions. In the second game of the season, in just one quarter, he had 4 receptions. And I look at a team like the Minnesota Vikings that I think the Vikings are going to play from ahead. I think the Vikings play with the lead today, and I think the Vikings are all around the better team. The Vikings come out here. First off, I'm not quite sure what the spread is, but give me the Vikings spread. I think the Vikings win by 7+ tonight. And like I said, I think that this Minnesota Vikings, if there's one way you can attack them, it is the outside receivers, and it is peppering your number one wide receiver with targets. I mean, go look at what Amon-Ra St. Brown just did against the Minnesota Vikings. He dominated them. I think he had 140, 10 plus receptions. And that's what, when I look at this Rams team, it's going to be a Cooper Kupp day. And like I said, I think this is the lowest you're going to get his line, 6.5 receptions. I would even sprinkle up to 8+. But like I said, when you look at what wide receivers have done against the Minnesota Vikings, it really is absurd so far this year. I mean, Garrett Wilson, 13 receptions, 110 yards. Stephon Diggs, 10 receptions, 94 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 8 receptions, 112. Jaden Reed, 7 receptions, 139. Wan'Dale Robinson, 6 receptions.
You're cooking.
They get receptions, and it's because of the scheme that the Minnesota Vikings run. They run a blitz-heavy scheme. They're blitzing you on 45% of the snaps, and they play this drop-back zone in the blitz, so where the underneath routes for your number one wide receiver are always open. Cooper Kupp, I'm willing to bet on the injury because I think that if he comes in and right away he looks fully healthy, I think he smashes this line and gets at least 8 receptions. So that's my favorite play, Monday Night Football. Cooper Kupp over 6.5 receptions.
Okay. Daniel cooked here. And we got
that.
the QR code still up here. I'm happy that it is. Make sure you guys scan that if you want all of our plays. Let's move over to NBA. Daniel, NBA is back in full swing. We have so much stuff to talk about weekly now. The Celtics take on the Wizards tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't usually do this, but I'm going to do it. I like 2 plays from that game. Jason Tatum, 8 rebounds. Jason Tatum over 3.5 threes. That dude shut me up. That dude came out in a big way opening night and absolutely shredded the Knicks defense, proving that the Boston Celtics are here to stay. Love to see that. Love that for him. There's another play that I like that it seems like Vegas is rating pretty lowly. Chris Paul over 7.5 assists tonight.
Love it.
I love that.
Love it.
I love that, man. Chris Paul over 7.5 assists. Him and Wemby in full effect because they're going up against the Dallas Mavericks, and I expect them to have some success. I think Wemby's rebounds I like over 10.5. Wemby's coming into his own. He's going to crush it this year. He's ready for his season debut to show out in a big way with his new teammate. I expect Chris Paul to find Wemby early and often. You know what a sneaky prop too I might look at? I might look at Wemby's assists too. Again, I'll have those plays for you guys later on. I like Luka at 8 rebounds. I like Luka over 29.5 points. I think he kills that number. Jokic to have 8 assists tonight, sitting at -180. But guys, ask me what my favorite play of the day is. Jimmy, Daniel, ask me what it is.
Can I guess? No, tell me.
You can guess. Come on. Don't do the heavy breathing like you're Michael Myers. Come on. What?
It is favorite play of the day is Michael Porter Jr. rebounds.
Nope.
Aaron
favorite
Gordon rebounds.
Huh?
Aaron Gordon rebounds.
Nope. I'm the rebound whisperer, but it's not that. My favorite play of the day. Russell Westbrook, 10 points against his former team. He is coming off the bench. He is going to lead the second unit for this Nuggets team against his old team that he literally built a fortress with, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Take it to the bank. Play of the day, Russell Westbrook, 10 points, lock it in, and it's plus money. Daniel, what about you?
I'm with you. I think that's a hammer. I'm gonna be honest. I think that there's days where you go simple, and there's days where you don't overcomplicate it. For me, I'm gonna be honest. I think I roll with the Russell Westbrook bet, and I've got one more. And it's very simple in my eyes. I think it's a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander masterclass tonight. I think that Shai has a huge performance tonight, and I don't think that there's really a way to think elsewise. I look at this Denver Nuggets team. You got Jamal Murray, and who else is defending Shai? They don't have KCP, who was the best defender. So who you putting on the best player, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, right? What are we doing? Christian Brown? Are we putting Peyton Watson on him? Peyton Watson's a long wing, but at the end of the day, he ain't guarding Shai respectfully. So I look at this Oklahoma City Thunder team, and they've got a lot of talent. But in games without Josh Giddey last year, Shai shot the ball 22 times on average in every one of those games. So Josh Giddey's playing his ass in Chicago now. They have Alex Caruso, who's a defensive-minded guy. He's not an offensive scorer. Shai has dominated this Denver Nuggets team. He had 34 and 40 points against them last year. 30 points, in my opinion, is an absolute lock. I look at this team. Shai's going to be playing 35-plus minutes. The only way this loses is if a team gets blown out in the third quarter. If that doesn't happen, if this is a somewhat competitive game heading into the fourth quarter, Shai gets 30 points, and I'm with you. I'm hammering that Russell Westbrook thing. So, yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
like.
I think Brody has a big day. I'm ready for it. I'm locked and loaded for it. Daniel, you kind of went light. Is there any other plays you like, man? This is supposed to be the time you shine.
No, for sure. And I think, but for me, and this is kind of just my thought process, is I really do, because if there's a ton of bets that I like, it kind of gets my mind all jumbled. For me, I can look at it right now. Hey, my A-list one is Shai Gilgeous. I'm going to go 2 to 3 units on that play. I'm just super confident on that. And I'm also going to take your Russell Westbrook one. If there's any others I like, well, I'm a huge fan of the Chris Paul one. I was a huge fan. I think that when you look at the best way to bet early on in the season is look at what's changed in rosters. Yesterday, something that we were on was Buddy Hield to have a big game. His line was at 9.5. The reason why I like that was his first game with the Warriors. We saw he had success in the preseason. Same thing. Chris Paul had success in the preseason, dishing the rock. If there's anything I like, I do like looking at that Wizards game, and I do like the Boston Celtics spread, 13.5.
You know a guy I will tell people not to sleep on in that Boston Wizards game? Jaylen Brown. Don't sleep in JB that game. I forgot, was it last year he had almost like 50 points against the Wizards? It was like he had 48, something like that. Don't sleep on him. He always does well against them. I actually favor his points a little bit more than that's why I took Jason Tatum's threes over his points, because I think JB could have a big game, but I still think Jason Tatum's gonna get his threes going.
If there's anything else I like, 2 props, but it's one specific player. Peyton Pritchard. This is the game, and you have to read into the tea leaves that Jaylen Brown and this entire players have said. Malik, when does a player come out and literally say, oh, we get our guys more shots in games against the bum teams? That's literally what Jaylen Brown said. He said in games against the Wizards and other teams, we're going to let Peyton and Sam shoot the ball 15, 20 times. And this is the game. Peyton Pritchard last night or 2 nights ago had a bad game. Only had 3 points. That was against the Knicks defense, who's absurd. That was opening day. Even at the end of the game, he was still getting a ton of shots. I look at his line at 9.5. I think he gets 10 points, but I'd be waiting to see his assist line. I think if it's at 3.5, I'd be taking that. But I think there's a world where the Celtics blow out the Washington Wizards. I love the Celtics win by 15 plus. And if they do that, Peyton Pritchard is going to have 10 plus points, and I like him to have 4 plus assists as well.
I like the way that you cook, man. I'm looking at it. I think that there's just some props that I love. I just can't believe Russell Westbrook to get 10 points is at plus money, man. I'm about to lock that in right now.
Yeah.
Hey, do us a favor. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys never miss when we go live. Last topic of the day. Let's talk about Ilia Topuria. Ilia Topuria is taking on Max Holloway this Saturday, defending his UFC featherweight championship for the first time. We talk a lot about how we think this fight could play out. We talk a lot about the intricacies of the fight, but what's next for Ilia if he does beat him, right? What's next? Because this is a guy in Ilia who the UFC is talking about going to his hometown, going to Spain, to bring an event there because he's that big of a global superstar.
Yes.
He's turning into everything the UFC sort of wants him to. But what's next afterwards? He talked about he wants to be a 3-division champion in the UFC. Not sure if that'll happen necessarily, but what do you think is next for him, Dan?
I think this dude has the world at his fingertips.
Mhm.
And it really depends on how his performance is. If it goes how we think it's going to go, if he goes out there and finishes Max Holloway, I think that there is a world where he still has to fight one more fight at, his current weight class. But I do think that there's a world where he's going to go up, Malik. And I think that that's, if I were to make a prediction, I think that he goes, beats Max Holloway, finishes him. And then I think he will fight the winner of a Diego Lopez, I believe. I don't know who he's fighting next, but I think he'll have one more fight at featherweight and then move up to face Islam because that's what Islam's got to fight, I believe, in the next 3 to 4 months to where that's against Arman. That would be my thought process. Hey, I do think that Ilia Topuria is the guy to go up and move and challenge for that weight class. And obviously you have been a huge proponent of that. And I think that there really isn't a world where he just stays at his weight class.
Yeah.
With people like Topuria, they go on these huge rocket ship rides to where, and that's the same thing with the UFC. When a fighter is hot, when they are getting all the momentum, they damn sure get all the momentum. And if he goes out there and beats Max Holloway, he's going to be the second biggest superstar in the UFC immediately.
Yep.
And if
So
you
the
have,
second, who's the first? Opaheda?
yeah,
Okay,
I
that
think
makes
Alex
sense.
is one.
Makes sense.
But if he goes out there and does that, then you go and say, hey, from the UFC's perspective, you want to milk it as long as possible. So I would go put him up against featherweight, a guy like Diego Lopez. That's a exciting fight. Go out there, make that fight. Maybe you put that one on for Spain. And then at that point, the Islam fight versus Topuria, I think it's going to happen. The makings are already there. And I think Islam was looking for that up a weight class. He was waiting to see, okay, he talked about Leon Edwards, but this is a challenge for him where there's no doubt in my mind Islam is super confident that he dominated Ilia.
Yeah.
But
he wouldn't.
Yeah. And why, if you're Islam, why would you not take that fight? So I think that's what's next. I think if he goes out there, has a dominating performance, you face Diego Lopez or someone
that's what I was
in Spain, and then you go out there. And after that, I think at that point, timing, it'll line up to where hopefully you can go face Islam.
Here, I think it's very simple what the UFC should do. The UFC should do Diego Lopez versus Alexander Volkanovski. Respectfully, they should have did it on this card right here. And then the winner of that should be taking on the winner of Max Holloway, Ilia Topuria.
Yeah.
I believe it's going to be Ilia Topuria. I believe the next person to challenge for the championship. I don't know how a Volk fight goes with Diego just yet. I think I lean Volk. I think I lean Volk in that fight. I feel like I haven't loved the early returns. I would like to see Diego I would have liked to see Diego get Brian Ortega out of there. Didn't get a chance to really see that. But I think that Diego Lopez versus Volkanovski fight makes a lot of sense. And I think the winner of that should take on the winner of Topuria versus Max Holloway, which I'm predicting will be Topuria. But I agree with you. I think the word is at his fingertips. As much as I like Ilia, I got to stay with what I believe. I don't believe champions should defend their championship once and then just move up to weight class. I think he should get at least three title defenses in maybe before talking about challenging for the lightweight championship. The problem with that is a guy like Islam is probably not going to be around that long. So even if you get a title defense here and you get another one in, I'm fine with that. 2 title defenses, then fight for a belt for a super fight versus Islam Makhachev. I think that makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. But let us know down in the comment section what you guys think. Ilia, what's next for him? Does he even target a super fight with Conor McGregor? I know they've kind of been going back and forth talking about things, but I think Ilia has the world at his oyster tips, if you will. And I'm excited to see what takes place. We appreciate that you guys make our morning show a part of your daily routine. Remember, there's only one way you should be waking up, talking sports, having the conversation, engaging in the conversation, and that is the right way. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. as we get you all caught up and all ready for week 8 of the NFL, as well as UFC 308 and NBA being back. We'll see you guys tomorrow.